Hey everyone, welcome back to 5 Minutes Fluentcast. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt super motivated one moment, excited to start something new, and then just a few minutes later, completely bored, distracted, or craving something else? Maybe you open your phone without thinking, scroll for a while, eat something sweet, or look for another quick hit of pleasure. A lot of that behavior is driven by one powerful chemical in your brain, dopamine. Today, we're going to talk about what dopamine really is, how it affects your motivation, pleasure, focus, and habits, and why understanding it can completely change the way you relate to work, food, exercise, and even your phone.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. I love this topic because dopamine is often misunderstood. People think it's just the pleasure chemical, but it's much more complex than that. Dopamine shapes what we desire, what we pursue, and even how satisfied we feel with our lives. When dopamine is balanced, life feels engaging and meaningful. When it's constantly overstimulated, everything starts to feel flat.
Exactly. So before we talk about problems, habits, or addiction, we need to understand how dopamine actually works inside the body. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter, a chemical messenger in the brain. But unlike what many people believe, dopamine is not mainly about pleasure. It's about motivation, anticipation, and reward seeking. Dopamine is released before you get the reward, not after. It's what makes you want something, chase something, and repeat behaviors that feel promising. When dopamine is released, your brain is basically saying, "This is important. Pay attention. Do this again."
That's such an important distinction. Pleasure is more about satisfaction and calm. Dopamine is about movement and pursuit. It's the reason you feel excited before eating your favorite food, before checking a notification, or before achieving a goal. The problem is that modern life constantly triggers dopamine in artificial ways.
In the past, dopamine was released by things that supported survival: food, movement, social connection, learning. Today, we have endless dopamine triggers that require almost no effort. Social media, ultra-processed food, streaming platforms, notifications, endless scrolling, all of these create quick dopamine spikes. The brain loves efficiency, so when it finds an easy dopamine source, it starts preferring that over slower, deeper rewards.
And that's where things start to break down. When dopamine spikes happen too often and too intensely, the brain adapts. It lowers sensitivity. What once felt exciting starts to feel normal, then boring. So you need more stimulation just to feel the same level of motivation or pleasure.
This is why many people feel unmotivated even though they consume a lot of stimulation. Their dopamine system is overloaded. Instead of driving motivation, dopamine becomes dysregulated. You don't feel inspired to work, read, exercise, or learn, not because you're lazy, but because your brain has been trained to expect faster rewards.
And that creates frustration. People say, "I don't have motivation anymore," but what they really mean is, "My brain is tired of chasing dopamine without real satisfaction." Burnout is not just about working too much. It's also about overstimulation without fulfillment.
Sugar deserves special attention here. Sugar causes a fast dopamine release followed by a crash. That crash often leads to cravings, irritability, and low energy, which makes people seek more stimulation. The same happens with caffeine and alcohol in different ways. They temporarily boost dopamine, but they don't build long-term motivation or satisfaction.
That's why balance is so important. Dopamine is not the enemy. The problem is when dopamine comes only from fast external sources instead of meaningful effort.
Dopamine can be rebuilt and regulated. Activities like exercise, walking, strength training, learning, deep work, and real social connection create healthy dopamine patterns. These activities don't create extreme spikes. They create stable motivation over time.
That's why habits matter so much. When dopamine is tied to effort, not instant reward, life starts to feel more meaningful again. You feel satisfaction after doing something hard, not just stimulation before doing nothing.
There's also an identity component. When your dopamine system is balanced, you trust yourself more. You don't feel controlled by cravings, distractions, or impulses. You feel capable of choosing long-term rewards over short-term pleasure.
And that changes how you see yourself. You stop saying, I have no discipline, and start saying, I'm learning how my brain works. That shift alone can be life-changing.
So dopamine is not just about pleasure. It's about motivation, focus, habits, and meaning. When dopamine is overstimulated, life feels flat. When it's balanced, effort feels rewarding again.
Understanding dopamine helps you stop blaming yourself and start working with your biology. That's real self-care.
Here's a simple practice you can try this week. Reduce one easy dopamine source, like mindless scrolling, and replace it with one effort-based activity, like walking, reading, or exercising.
At first, it might feel uncomfortable. That's normal. But over time, your motivation and focus will start to return naturally.
You're not removing pleasure, you're rebuilding your ability to feel it. Thanks for listening to this episode of 5 Minutes Fluentcast.
We hope this conversation helped you understand your brain a little better.
Remember, motivation is not about willpower, it's about biology and balance.
We'll see you in the next episode.
Take care.
Bye!
Thanks for listening to this episode of Fluentcast.
If you enjoyed this conversation and learned something new,
Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
we post new episodes with real English and real ideas about life.
You can also download the PDF with the full transcript of this episode. The link is in the description below.
And here's an important tip. Try listening to this same episode every day for 1 week.
Repetition helps you understand more deeply, notice new expressions, and improve your listening skills.
This is how real learning happens, naturally and step by step.
See you next time.
Bye!